In today's video, we're going to talk about the link between Post Concussion Syndrome, PCS, and heart rate variability, HRV. Hi, I'm AJ Fisher. The reason that this topic is very near and dear to my heart is because I've had a lot of friends who have suffered concussions on many levels. I had a long career on the Broadway stage, and there's a surprisingly high number of individuals who experience concussion while performing the Broadway gig or even a non-Broadway gig or something theatrical because of the special effects that happen on the stage and also because of the quick set changes and the quick choreography. Additionally, I've had a lot of friends in my training career who have experienced concussion because of their experiences on professional sport teams or also just as a trainer in general, and the rigor at which we train can predispose us to higher forces, higher velocities that could impact the head. And then additionally, also just military, so many other areas where individuals suffer concussion on many levels, some major and do require hospitalization and do require post-rehab, and then some minor and don't necessarily perform any kind of rehab, but you may benefit from some level of rehabilitation. Now, let me preface this with, I am not a medical doctor. I'm a personal trainer. I do have a master's in exercise science, and I've performed physiology work at a graduate level on breathwork and exercise, but this by no means qualifies me to give someone advice who's had a major concussion. And so if you've had a concussion, please stop this video now and consult a medical professional. This advice is for someone who has gone through their proper rehabilitation, and this advice could be used as a potential therapeutic, as a potential non-pharmacological strategy, simply using breathwork and exercise to help with those long-term symptoms of post-concussion syndrome. While there are a number of therapies available, there has been debate in the scientific literature as to what the most optimal approach for concussion recovery is, and there are many new strategies arising in the area, including activities that challenge the visual and motor system simultaneously, such as dance and HRV, that's heart rate variability, training. Because these are two areas that I'm highly familiar with because of my history as a Broadway dancer and also as a personal trainer specializing in HRV, heart rate variability, and how the breath work affects that heart rate variability, I would like to dive into the mechanisms as to how these two worlds could be a potential tool, a potential therapeutic for those suffering with post-concussion syndrome. As a side note, these strategies are also representative of strategies that can be employed into any person's exercise protocol, regardless of neurological status, as both tools have been shown to improve cognition on multiple levels. Let's begin with dance as a potential therapy for concussion. Because concussed individuals tend to have disturbances in blood flow to areas of the brain, some parts of the brain working harder than others in a haphazard fashion, therapies that activate the underactive areas of the brain and that cross hemispheres can have a therapeutic effect. In fact, in an impressive case study, rehabilitation of the DMN or default mode network in relationship with other large-scale networks of the brain resulted in improvement on many levels of cognition. Because concussion can indeed affect the DMN, which is responsible for creativity, experiential self, narrative thinking, and making decisions, including goal setting, disturbances to this area can be devastating. In this study, they analyzed the positive outcomes of this individual by looking at a couple of areas. The EEG and the FIM, that's Functional Independence Measure, which is a standard evaluation for those suffering with post-concussion syndrome. Now, moving on to one of my biggest passions in life, dance. How can dance therapy be a potential therapeutic for those suffering with post-concussion syndrome, and what are the potential mechanisms? Increased interhemispheric activity, or ultimately the chit-chat from one side of the brain to the other, has been shown in MRI imaging of dancers' brains. This is due to the combination of motor activity coupled with visual, balance, short-term memory, and interpretation of music. There are so many areas of the brain that are working simultaneously in dance that have shown increases in gray matter, including the cerebellum and the hippocampus, which are key for spatial awareness and memory formation. In fact, several effective post-concussion protocols incorporate cardio intervals in conjunction with their therapies because of the benefits both short-term for the successful execution of the therapy and long-term for successful healing. One symptom of concussion that has been highlighted in a number of papers is reduced HRV or heart rate variability. HRV or heart rate variability is the fluctuation of time intervals in between adjacent heartbeats. A low HRV score has been correlated with mortality rates, sleep disturbances, and reduced cognitive power. Because of disturbances in blood flow between the middle cerebral artery and other brain internetworks, which then causes disturbances in the crosstalk between prefrontal cortex and other areas of the brain. HRV is affected because of the prefrontal cortex's relationship with the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is a branch of the peripheral nervous system that regulates involuntary physiological processes, including heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, and digestion. When HRV scores are too low, as happens post-concussion, all of these areas are affected. When HRV scores become too low, as happens typically post-concussion, all of these areas are affected. Now that research looking at HRV in concussed populations is becoming more popular, a number of outstanding papers have been published over the past decade. Condor and Condor 2014 showed significant improvements in concussion symptoms and cognition after integrating 0.1 Hz frequency breathing protocols. They measured HRV in real time and were able to see both short and long-term improvements in their concussed subjects. It's interesting to know that high HRV scores have been correlated countless times to higher cognition, including memory, reaction, attention, and executive functioning. So what is that relationship between the slow breathing, the improved HRV, and the improved brain functioning? Whether you are someone who's suffering with long-term post-concussion syndrome, or you're an individual who simply wants to improve your own cognitive functioning. Well, let's dig into the mechanics. When you breathe slowly, because the autonomic nervous system sends signals to the brain that you are okay and do not need to be in a state of fear, a cascade of effects ensues. When there is brain damage, the amygdala, a main area in control of the autonomic nervous system, doesn't quite correctly calibrate the signal transmission between the heart and brain as to precisely where we should be sitting in our HRV spectrum. For this reason, many individuals suffering with PCS become very rigid in their HRV, meaning our heartbeat becomes less flexible. When we regulate and slow down our breathing consciously, signals get sent from the brain to the heart that we are calm and okay and safe. And at that moment, the heartbeat becomes less rigid and begins to train the brain that may be dysfunctional at this point post-concussion, that you don't need to be on hyper alert 24/7. That's that fight or flight. That's that rigid fight or flight, thinking that we are under attack and we need to be in a state of less of rigidity and less flexibility, because when we have high HRV, there's fluctuations in those intervals between the heartbeats. So maybe we're 61 beats per minute, then 62, then 65, and it kind of goes all over the place, and that's good. We want to be flexible and malleable, just like our muscles and our joints. When our HRV is low, there is little to no differentiation between those the periods between the heartbeats. So 61 beats per minute, maybe we're 61, 61. The metronome is hitting at that same exact millisecond every single time, and we're rigid, we're held, we're tight, we're taut, we're ready for action, we're ready to protect ourselves because we're living in a state of fear. Additionally, the increased blood flow from the improved HRV, largely due to a recovery of our carbon dioxide levels, pushes more blood through the middle cerebral artery, which has a healing effect on the brain of the concussed, a brain that might have lesser than normal blood flowing through the artery and to many areas in the brain. Please talk to your doctor before trying any of these mechanisms, but performing breathwork and exercise has been shown multiple times to be an effective, safe, non-pharmacological strategy for those suffering with post-concussion syndrome. If you would like to learn how to combine your breathwork with exercise that incorporates the ingredients of dance, please visit HYPOXiX.fitness, that's HYPOXiX.fitness, to learn the method for free. Please join me at HYPOXiX.studio to take live classes and have your exercise and breathwork yearly program designed by me. If you are a trainer, please visit HYPOXiX.fitness to take the continuing education course that teaches your clients how to integrate their breath with their core, the breathing core. See you at the next video.